Hello. Today we're going to be doing a very simple landscape painting in acrylic in just 3 colors. So let's get started. The 3 colors that we're going to be using are quinacridone magenta, Hansa yellow or benzimidazolone yellow, and phthalo blue. We're also going to add in some titanium white. This is going to be a simple landscape painting that you can do at home easily. Let's start off by putting up our palette. I'll put out some quin magenta, yellow. I'm using benzimidazolone yellow, but you could use Hansa yellow or any other clear yellow that you have. You just want a yellow that doesn't have too much red in it. Okay, and here's some phthalo blue and titanium white. We're going to put a fair amount of titanium white out because we're going to be using quite a bit of it. I also like to put out some glazing liquid when I'm painting an acrylic to keep things from getting too dry too fast. Keep things from drying up. So we'll put a little bit of that out. First thing we're going to do is take a light colored paint marker and just kind of sketch out my design. So this is a real simple landscape painting. I'm going to have a couple of hills like this, some hills in the background, a tree here in the foreground, and sky. And that's about it. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is take my round paintbrush, and this is all in your description, and I am going to just moisten it. Just put a little bit of water on it. Don't get it too wet. Keep a couple of paper towels next to me in case I want to blot that, but make sure you don't use too much water in your paint. So for our sky, we want a nice kind of sunset sky. We're going to start with some yellow. I'm going to put some glazing liquid in that, and I'm just going to come across the sky like this. A little more glazing liquid, keep things nice and juicy. Let's put a little titanium white into that. And as we go down here to the hills, I'm going to add a little tiny bit of quin magenta, some more glazing liquid, and that will help you blend. Just blend right into that. And keep moving your paintbrush back and forth, side to side. You can see here, I'm just using smooth strokes, going back and forth, side to side. Come all the way down over the tops of the hills. Let's add a little bit more yellow up here. Just keep moving that back and forth, side to side. We get a nice kind of sunset feel going there. Let's make it a little bit darker down towards the top of those hills. Okay, that's pretty good. I like the way that color's working. I'm going to wipe off my brush. I'm not putting it in the water. I'm just going to wipe it off. Now I'm going to make a kind of a dark purple for this back hill. So I'll start with my blue, and I'll put a little quin magenta into it. Make a little bit of a dark purple back here, and I'm just going to kind of just put that in back there. Let's make it a little red, a little bit more red. It's a little bit too blue. And see how I'm going over the edge of the hill in front? That's because you don't want things to just end and butt up to each other. It'll look like it's cardboard. Make sure that you make those blend over one another. Okay, good. Wipe off my brush. Once again, I'm not putting it in the water. Now I want these foreground hills to be a little warmer. So I'm going to go into my yellow, my Quin Magenta. I'm going to make a dark orange. And let's just come right over that first hill that we made. Come right over that. Go back into the magenta. Just let the paintbrush do the work. Just let that paint glide on the canvas. Get a little bit more orange, a little bit more yellow. And see how the colors just mix together and make these nice variations. That's what you want to do. You want to mix on the canvas, not on the palette. Okay, wipe my brush. Just wiping it, not putting it in the water. This hill in the front, I'm going to have it a little bit brighter. Let's put some yellow down first. And you can see when I lay this down, I'm just letting that brush roll as I put that paint down. Just letting the brush make all of these lovely different types of strokes and let that paint blend right on the canvas. Okay, a little bit of Quin Magenta. We don't want too much because I want a little variation in those hills. Little Quin Magenta here. And I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of that purple blue that I had, just to give me a little bit more variation here in the foreground. Now we've got some really lovely hills there. Now if you feel like your hills are too dark, you can always go back, just wipe your brush, paper towel, go back with a little titanium white because things are still going to be wet. So I can come back here and I can just hit the top of this with a little titanium white. Lighten it up a little bit. Just let it blend. And that gives us a little hint of light hitting the top of that. Just put a little bit of yellow there. There we go. Let's get a little bit more yellow right there. Okay, perfect. Now we've got some really pretty hills going there. Let's fix up this one right here. Had a funny little line there. There we go, looking good. Now it's time for our tree. I'm going to go to a smaller paintbrush. This is a number 10 round right here. So I am going to go to a number 6 rather. This is a number 6 round, and these are all in your description. The brushes and the paints that I'm using, these are Golden Fluids, and these are Princeton brushes, and those are all in your description. So now we've got a kind of a dark purple here. Let's go back to our dark purple, and you'll notice I didn't put my brush in the water this time because I want to make sure I go down on top of this wet paint. I want to make sure my brush is nice and dry. So let's make a kind of a purple here. We're just making something dark. Let's see if we like that's a little bit too blue. Let's make that a little bit more red. That's better. Okay. Now I'm just going to make a couple of dots for my tree, and just so you can see, I'm just using the tip of my paintbrush, and I'm just going to make a couple of little dots like that. So I just have a place for my tree. I don't want to start off and make a great big paint stroke and it might be in the wrong place. So that looks like that's about right. And now I'm going to start filling in the tree, but be sure that you remember that trees are not solid objects. they have air. So I'm going to kind of dab around the sides like I did before with the tip of my brush and kind of build the shape of that tree. I don't want just a round tree because that wouldn't be, that's, you know, not the way trees grow. Very few trees grow perfectly round. So kind of make it a little bit odd shape. And I'm just tapping the top of my paintbrush. Okay, so I've kind of got the shape that I want. Now I'm going to go back with a little Quin Magenta, and I'm going to just keep building up with paint strokes, little daubs of paint, just little daubs of paint. And you can see I'm just using the tip of my paintbrush, just the tip. And if your tree looks too blue or too red, you can always change the color as you go. Do it on the canvas, not on the palette. So this is looking pretty purple. You might not be able to see that on the screen, but I want to mute it down a little bit. It's a little bit too purple. So I'm going to grab a little yellow, and I'm going to, obviously that's going to be green because I've got a lot of blue on my brush. So I'll grab a little more Quin Magenta and I'll make a kind of a muddy brown. I don't know if you can see that, but it's almost black. So that's a complementary color. I've got Quin Magenta, the yellow, I've got a kind of a brown here, and then if I put a dab of blue in that, I'll get something that's really a dark green. Looks pretty good. Let's use that. And I'm just dabbing, just dabbing. Let's come at it this way as well. And so you can see when I hold my brush this way from the top, I get different kinds of paint strokes. And so that can be very helpful in making something that looks organic and not cartoony. So I think we're pretty good for our tree. I think our tree looks pretty good. That's going to be our very simple landscape today. That didn't take very long at all. I'm working on a 6x6 canvas. So we're going to do these, we're going to do the 12 days of painting. This is number 1, and join me again for number 2. We will be doing 12 of these paintings, and I will see you in the next video. And remember what I always say, keep painting.